if you pay attention to that in terms of the relationship you have with.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I talk to my mom on the phone for hours every day, even when we lived 10 minutes apart. So moving back in with my parents wasn't really that hard. I mean, I'm friends with my parents. We watch TV. We eat dinner together every night, except when I'm at work or at school. So, I mean, we get along really well, which I think helps a lot. I think a lot of people say, I can't move back in with my parents. They're just awful people. But everyone told me, you're going to move back in with your parents. They're going to try to tell you you can't come home at 3 a.m. It has never been a problem for me.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, on this generation using so much of the generosity of their parents in order to survive what is a very difficult job market, and certainly not the first generation. There are cultures that rely on families living together and generations living together, and we've talked about that on this program too. But it certainly seems more marked now that parents, young kids are moving back in with their parents. And what are your thoughts on that? How does that affect the economy, commerce, those types of things? Should, trying to sell houses to young people who aren't buying them? We'll look at that long-range impact, too, and love to have your thoughts at 216-578-0903. We are going to take your calls when we come back. Jeff in Beechwood is waiting, and we're going to talk to Jeff right after this break. It's The Sound of Ideas. I'm Mike McIntyre, back in a minute.
Support for 90.3 is provided by Wayside Furniture in Akron. Family-owned and operated for over 75 years. 200,000 square feet of furniture and custom-crafted cabinetry. Online at wayside-furniture.com.
Support for 90.3 comes from Novo Nordisk, dedicated to changing possibilities in hemophilia. Some see hemophilia as a lifetime of test bleeds and complications. Novo Nordisk works to help them see a lifetime of possibilities at changingpossibilities-us.com.
The Center for Health Affairs business affiliate Champs Healthcare will explore the topics of patient navigation, service recovery, accountable care organizations, and more at Beyond the Buzzwords. Attendees will receive information to assist in the understanding of patient-centered cultures, specifically in cancer care settings. Registration is now open for the September 26th Cleveland Conference. More information online at champsconference.com.
Welcome back to The Sound of Ideas. It's 9:25 a.m. We're talking this morning about the millennial generation, Generation Y, those born in the early 80s to the early 2000s, and the difficulties that they're having financially, twice the unemployment rate as the general population, a feeling of not doing as well as their parents, not doing nearly as well as they thought they would be doing at this point in their lives. We have Jeremy Fedor with us in studio. He's 27 years old. We've talked about his master's in history and some of the part-time some of the part-time work he's doing as an archivist at Baldwin Wallace, which is what he wants to do, but isn't quite the kind of job you'd think you might have at 27, a full-time employment. And you've never had a job with benefits, have you?
No, and I've been fortunate to get with my wife to have great benefits, and I lived off my mom's before we were married, so...
So that's the situation with Jeremy. Bridget Gibbons is with us, and she is, we mentioned, has a degree in English, worked at a call center. Now you're studying nuclear medicine at Tri-C.
Yep.
So moving into an entirely new field.
Totally different field.
So we did talk about that, the kind of major that you get, and perhaps the English major wasn't the right thing for the economy at that time.
Well, when I entered college, it was 2001, and September 11th happened, I think, a week into my freshman year. So I could tell things were going to kind of get uncomfortable with the economy, and after I finished my degree in 3 years, which was really rare at that time and is becoming even more rare. Most people now take 5 or 6 years just to get a bachelor's. After that, I went to law school because the economy was bad when I graduated in 2004. And I thought, well, I'll kind of find myself in law school. I'll figure out what I want to do. This is just kind of putting a pause button on having to grow up. That's not really a good way to do things, though. I think grad school is not a place to go find yourself. If you couldn't do it in your bachelor's, maybe go get a job instead, because that was more debt that I didn't need.
And that's kind of why I went straight to a master's program, because I graduated in 2008, and I said, the economy's not great.
Yeah.
I'll go get my master's. And during the whole time, I'm like, okay, this should start picking up soon, hopefully, and graduation.
And then you find yourself being really overqualified.
Yeah, and it picked up for a
worse.
whole lot of other people, not the millennial generation, though. Mikhail Teshome is with us as well. He's an economist with PNC Bank, did a survey with this generation. We're going to be getting his expertise throughout the program. And I promised Jeff in Beechwood first out of the gate here, and we're going to have Jeff in Beechwood. You can join us, too, at 216-578-0903. Jeff, welcome to the program. Thanks for holding.
Sure, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I think this may sound harsh to some people, but I think we need to step back and take a look from a longer distance picture, decades. For decades, we have been undermining a certain dynamism that existed in our economy in a number of ways through regulation. In other words, used to be the idea was go create. And then if there were problems, if people got hurt or if things were happening, we would try to fix them. Where we changed that to let's head off the problems, let's have regulations, let's have a lot of rules, let's prevent, the environment from being harmed. And that took away a kind of dynamism, which kind of stopped the business people, stopped the people who created the jobs from creating them. We also changed the attitude we had in raising our children. The old days when I'm 62 years old, I was expected to work in the summertime. I was expected to help pay for my college. The younger generation today was kind of given almost a free ride with the idea that, don't worry, you graduate college and everything will be fine. And you multiply all those things together over years and years and years, and you have a situation where we're contracting. I mean, if young people are not getting married, going out and creating businesses or getting jobs, they're not buying homes, or they're not renting apartments, they're not buying furniture, all these things have, I think, multiplier effects. So we have to understand that when we make rules that may be well-intentioned, it's like the unintended consequences come to smack you in the face, and they weren't totally unanticipatable. We could have seen that these unintended consequences could happen.
Jeff, thanks for the call. I'm not sure everyone would agree that regulation is the problem here, although that certainly is the viewpoint that you're bringing to the program. And I wonder if our economists might speak to that point, the broader point of the difficulty of finding jobs, not necessarily being because of a certain economic downturn, but because of regulation.
Well, the scope of our study really didn't go that far, so I don't really have any any point to make there. But what I will say is that what our study found, and some of other research that I've been looking at, is that there really is a mismatch between the number of jobs available and the number of people wanting to work, and then also the types of jobs available and the types of degrees that people have. So we're looking more at that mismatch between supply and demand, and we haven't really looked that far back.
He also mentioned the idea of sort of in our generation, his generation, he's talking about at 62 years old. I think I'm in between you guys. In that generation, you're expected to, you worked. It was a bootstrap idea. Get out of the house and get your work done. And essentially, that today you're kind of coddled by parents. And Bridget, and when you hear that kind of criticism, how do you react?
I'd just like to make the point that it was much easier to pay for college as a high school graduate and work your way through college when tuition was maybe 1/100th of what it is today. I mean, college costs have gone up so much. It's just not possible to work at McDonald's and put yourself through a 4-year degree in 4 years. You can go to night school. You can work your way through school. It just takes a really long time, and it's very difficult to do.
Different economic reality. Jeremy?
Well, and, with some of the jobs that we want, especially in the museum field, you have to volunteer a lot, too. And if you spend your summers volunteering at a museum that maybe eventually will help your career when you're out, you're not pulling in the money, but, you're possibly, setting the pathway for your future, but you might not be. So you got to balance, you have to work, but you have to volunteer, too.
Let's welcome to the conversation Frances Calais. She graduated from Cleveland State University last year looking for work in the journalism field, and she's on break right now from her job at a local grocery store. Probably not what she was thinking she'd be doing when she graduated, just like our other guests here who are have been working in fields that they didn't expect. Frances, welcome to the program.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. So tell me a little bit about what your expectations were and what the reality has become for someone your age just graduating from college.
Honestly, I don't think I had any expectations that were any different than anybody else's, I guess. I grew up in a small town just outside of Cleveland, and the expectation was you graduate high school, you go to college, and you do whatever you want. And when you graduate college, you somehow fall into your dream career. Maybe you take some time off to go explore and find yourself. I actually went to Bowdoin College in Maine for 2 years, took some time off, and finished up my degree at CSU. graduated in 2012. And sort of in the last couple of years, finishing up that degree, I realized that it's not that way, and that the job market, in particular for jobs in the media and in journalism, is just not as promising as I had thought. So it's incredibly discouraging at times. It's not impossible, but the idyllic framework that I had in my head about graduating and finding a career has kind of been shattered a little bit.
And Frances, you're not alone. I wonder among your friends if there are a number of people with the same kind of stories, or are you standing there looking at everyone else working in their dream jobs and wondering why not me?
No, basically everybody is dealing with the same, is in the same predicament, and it's friends who want to go into the media or the arts. Academia is in there too. I've got a friend who got her master's in art history and is dealing with the same struggle. She's working in a low-paying internship right now, hoping to find some kind of a job in a museum as a curator, but those jobs are extremely difficult to get. So she's dealing with the same sort of thing. What would
you do differently if you could rewind the clock to the first day at Boyden and decide something else that you might want to do? Would you do anything differently?
I'd like to say yes. I'd like to say that I would, number one, finish my degree in 4 years as opposed to the 8 that it took to get that diploma. I'd like to say that I'd pick a different major, but I majored in English, just like Bridget, and it's what I love to do. And I just can't see myself being happy, which is really important to me, in doing very much of anything else. And I think if you aren't happy, you're going to be a much less productive person, and so you're going to be presented with the same problem of, I'm not making enough money, I'm not advancing in my career, because you're so unhappy.
This might get to the crux of one of the things that Mikhail found out in his survey, and that is that people of this generation are still optimistic, right, Mikhail? That they still believe, even though they're not financially independent, that that's just right around the corner?
That's exactly right. They are very optimistic as a group.
And so I wonder, in your case, Frances, you say you want to be happy and you're not really settling for those things that won't make you happy. Does that make you optimistic? Do you think that there is light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train?
You know, if you asked half of my friends who I complain to all the time, they'd say no.
That's their job, is to listen to you, by the way.
Exactly. But honestly, yeah, somehow, I mean, I fret and I worry about this all the time, but I refuse to accept that it's not an option for me, that my dream job, whatever that is, being a writer, is not an option. I don't want to, and I don't believe that.
You're not giving it up?
No.
Good for you.
I don't think you can. I don't think that if you really want to do something, I don't think that you can give that up because it's too much a part of you.
Thanks for joining the program today. I know you got to get back to work, and perhaps what you're doing right now is just an extended period of research for the novel.
That's how I like to look at it.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We have an email from Chris who says, I graduated in May of 2012, still looking for full-time work. Never thought it'd be so hard to find meaningful, challenging work, and it doesn't help that my degree is a BA in urban studies. I'll admit that. I was hoping to find a nonprofit entry-level job, but I just accepted a part-time marketing position. And that's Chris's viewpoint. So we're hearing a lot of these basically confirming the premise that the folks of this generation are having difficulty. And I wonder, Mikhail Teshome, what impact will it have that these folks of the millennial generation are delayed in their ascendancy? Does that affect the baby boomers who are helping to take care of them? Does that affect business owners who are of an older age who are trying to sell them cars and houses? And then what about the generation behind them?
That's an excellent point, and I'm glad you mentioned those different generations. I think the impact really is multi-generational. For the millennials themselves, it's the failure to launch really represents lost time and lost earnings over the course of a lifetime. And, this really sets them behind on things such as retirement planning, planning for the future in the long term. In the short term, you see less spending on big-ticket items such as cars and homes.